At 3:17 in the morning, an exhausted prison guard walked slowly past cell 214 inside Blackwater State Penitentiary. Most inmates were asleep. The prison was quiet, and somewhere deep inside the concrete darkness, a man sat awake staring at the wall. Not because he was dangerous, not because he was planning escape, but because after 16 years behind bars, Marcus Reed still could not understand how his entire life had disappeared. 16 years earlier, he had been called a monster, a killer, a man capable of murdering a young mother in cold blood. The media destroyed him, the courtroom condemned him, and eventually, a jury sentenced him to life in prison. Case closed. Except there was one terrifying problem. Marcus Reed never stopped claiming he was innocent. And over time, something strange began happening. Witnesses changed their stories, evidence started disappearing, detectives refused interviews, and one retired investigator would eventually make a confession that threatened to destroy the entire case. Because according to him, there was something the jury never heard. Something buried for years. Something that may have sent an innocent man to prison while the real killer walked free. This is the story of a wrongful conviction that nearly destroyed everyone involved. The town of Ash Hollow looked peaceful from the outside. Small diners, quiet neighborhoods, Friday night football games, people who believed terrible things only happened somewhere else. Until April 9th. At approximately 11:52 p.m., police received multiple emergency calls from residents living near Cedar Lane. A woman had been found unconscious inside her home. Her name was Emily Dawson, 29 years old, single mother, nurse, well known throughout the community. When officers entered the house, they immediately recognized signs of violent struggle. Broken glass, furniture overturned, blood across the kitchen floor. But perhaps the most disturbing detail of all was what investigators discovered near the back hallway. Emily's 6-year-old daughter hiding silently inside a closet. Terrified, unable to speak, covered in blood that was not her own. The town collapsed emotionally overnight. Parents locked their doors, news vans flooded the streets, and police leadership demanded immediate results. Then investigators focused on one man, Marcus Reed, 34 years old, former construction worker, quiet personality, minor criminal history, recently divorced. And according to detectives, he had argued publicly with Emily Dawson just days before the murder. That alone was not enough. But then investigators uncovered more. A witness claimed seeing Marcus's truck near Emily's street shortly before midnight. Phone records placed him within several miles of the neighborhood. And according to prosecutors, Marcus had no clear alibi for nearly 2 hours. To police, the case began feeling simple. Too simple. The interrogation lasted nearly 14 hours. Detectives pushed aggressively, repeated accusations, psychological pressure, claims that forensic evidence already proved his guilt. Marcus denied everything. Again, and again, and again. But investigators noticed something. Marcus was exhausted, emotionally overwhelmed, and increasingly terrified. Then detectives showed him photographs from the crime scene. Something changed immediately. Marcus began crying uncontrollably. "I swear I didn't kill her," he whispered. But detectives interpreted his emotional collapse differently. To them, he looked guilty. Eventually, audio from the interrogation captured a devastating moment. Marcus said, "Maybe I blacked out. Maybe I don't remember." That sentence changed everything. Investigators treated it like partial confession. The media exploded. Headlines described Marcus as unstable and violent. Television analysts discussed hidden rage. And before trial even began, public opinion had already decided he was guilty. The prosecution built a terrifying narrative. Marcus Reed became the jealous man who snapped. They claimed Emily rejected him, humiliated him, and triggered violent anger. Jurors listened to emotional testimony for weeks. Crime scene photos, forensic analysis, witness statements. Then prosecutors played Marcus's interrogation recording. "Maybe I blacked out. The courtroom fell silent. Defense attorneys fought desperately. No murder weapon had ever been recovered, and no fingerprints directly tied Marcus to the attack. Blood evidence remained inconclusive. But emotionally, none of it mattered. Emily Dawson's grieving family sat only feet away. The town demanded justice, and prosecutors understood something important. Fear persuades juries. After only 9 hours of deliberation, Marcus Reed was found guilty of murder. Emily's mother cried, reporters rushed outside, and Marcus collapsed emotionally as deputies placed handcuffs around his wrists. Then came the sentence. Life in prison without possibility of parole. Marcus's final words before removal from the courtroom would later haunt many people connected to the case. "You're locking away the wrong man." Prison changed Marcus quickly. The violence, the isolation, the constant fear. Inside Blackwater State Penitentiary, innocence meant nothing. Other inmates recognized his case from television coverage. Some believed he murdered Emily. Others believed he was weak. Both made prison dangerous. Marcus learned silence, routine, survival. Years passed. His daughter stopped visiting. His marriage disappeared completely. Friends slowly vanished. But one thing never changed. Marcus Reed continued filing appeals. Every year, every rejection, every denial. He wrote letters to innocence organizations, journalists, attorneys, anyone willing to listen. Most ignored him. Until one investigative reporter finally responded. Her name was Claire Bennett. And she would eventually uncover something nobody expected. Claire Bennett had spent years investigating corruption and wrongful convictions. At first, Marcus's case looked ordinary. A violent murder. A convicted suspect. A failed appeal. But after reviewing trial transcripts, she noticed inconsistencies immediately. Witness timelines changed repeatedly. Key forensic conclusions sounded uncertain, and one detective appeared strangely defensive during cross-examination. Then Claire discovered something deeply disturbing. Another suspect had existed during the original investigation. A man named Daniel Hurst. Violent history, domestic abuse accusations, known connection to Emily Dawson. But somehow, his name barely appeared during trial. Claire became obsessed. Why would investigators ignore someone like Daniel Hurst? The deeper she investigated, the stranger the case became. Claire eventually located retired detective Alan Pierce. At first, he refused interviews. Then one night, he finally agreed to talk. What he revealed shocked her. According to Pierce, several pieces of evidence connected to Daniel Hurst had never reached the defense, including threatening messages sent to Emily, witness reports placing Daniel near the neighborhood, and a partial fingerprint investigators could never identify. Claire stared at him in disbelief. Why was none of this presented? Pierce looked exhausted, ashamed. Because by that point, he whispered, everyone already believed Marcus was guilty. Tunnel vision. The investigation had locked onto one suspect too quickly, and once that happened, everything else became background noise. Claire published her investigation online. The story exploded nationally. Suddenly, people across the country began questioning Marcus Reed's conviction. True crime podcasts covered the case. Civil rights organizations demanded review. Former jurors admitted uncertainty. Then something extraordinary happened. An Innocence Project attorney agreed to reopen the case. New forensic testing began. Modern DNA analysis examined evidence previously considered unusable. Weeks later, the results arrived. Marcus Reed's DNA did not match critical crime scene evidence. But another profile partially did. Daniel Hurst. The courtroom reaction during post-conviction hearings became explosive. Prosecutors argued the evidence remained incomplete. Defense attorneys argued Marcus had lost 16 years of his life because investigators ignored alternative suspects. The judge ordered full evidentiary review. And for the first time since conviction, Marcus Reed saw something he thought he would never experience again. Hope. At 11:26 a.m. on October 3 RD, Marcus Reed walked out of Blackwater State Penitentiary. Reporters surrounded him instantly. Cameras flashed. People cried openly. After 16 years behind bars, his conviction had finally been overturned. But freedom did not feel simple. Marcus's mother had died while he was imprisoned. His daughter barely knew him. The world itself had changed. And despite everything, Emily Dawson's murder still remained unresolved. Daniel Hurst denied involvement completely. No retrial ever occurred, and prosecutors refused admitting intentional wrongdoing. Legally, Marcus Reed became a free man. Emotionally, he remained trapped inside the consequences of a system that nearly destroyed him forever. Today, people still debate what truly happened inside Emily Dawson's home. Some believe Marcus Reed was innocent from the beginning. Others believe technicalities allowed a guilty man to escape punishment. But one reality remains impossible to deny. A man lost 16 years of his life after an investigation driven by fear, pressure, assumptions, and certainty. And somewhere between grief, public outrage, media pressure, and tunnel vision, the line between justice and tragedy slowly disappeared. Because sometimes, the most dangerous thing inside a courtroom is not corruption. It is certainty. The certainty that police already know the answer. The certainty that juries stop asking questions. The certainty that once society labels someone guilty, it becomes almost impossible to see them any other way. And for Marcus Reed, that certainty cost him 16 years behind bars. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to True Crime Story Vault for more disturbing investigations, wrongful conviction cases, hidden courtroom secrets, prison survival stories, and dark mysteries that continue haunting people years later. And remember, sometimes the most terrifying crimes are committed long after the verdict is delivered.